Well, good morning, everybody. Sorry I'm so late. So, this is just, I don't know how many other people have challenges like this. I'm going to talk about insulin resistance. We're going to get there, but I'm just going to unload a little bit of stuff this morning because I'm finding it very hilarious in my life right now. Look, I was supposed to be live almost an hour ago. Numerous technical difficulties. Last month, I couldn't even go live from my phone because it would only be live about 3 minutes and it was shut off. Having all this stuff go on. So this morning, yeah, it's similar issues. And what I realized this morning in listening, because I scroll like everybody else, I realized, well, number one, I'm gonna share some personal stuff, but I do follow a little bit of astrology, a little bit of Chinese astrology, a little bit of numerology, all of that stuff. I believe in energetics and how things line up. But I've always known that I'm a dragon, and this year has been a little bit rough for me. More of these instances of things not working than normal. And I listened to this guy, GG33, on, I think he's on YouTube, is where I see him. But he does a lot of numerology, and he kind of caught my attention with some things he said. Well, he talked about a couple of people having rough patches or rough years, and he said, well, it's their enemy year. And so I got on my phone this morning, I'm looking it up. Yep, sure enough, I'm in my enemy year this year. So this is the year of the rabbit, the mortal enemy of the dragon. But the good news for me is 2024 is the year of the dragon. So I'm so glad you guys put up with all my craziness and antics and all the randomness and stuff. I really, really don't expect a number of these things to happen. They happen. My daughter was on the phone with me. We were getting tickets for Turkey, planning the same trip at the same time. I had nothing but problems. We're doing the same things. And she was like, wow, what happened? And I'm like, this is just how my life has been this year. Anyway, I apologize for being late. I don't really mean to be. I don't really try to be. But when my computer and my phone aren't allowing me to go live, there's not a lot I can do till I can resolve that. So, you guys, I'm going to be talking today about, we're going to talk about a couple of things, how insulin resistance affects your gut. And if you guys are up for it, we'll talk about the fast that I'm doing and, the changes that I'm seeing, because I want to encourage other people to not be afraid of extended fasting. And we'll talk about a little bit of ways you can switch up your daily fast, your intermittent fasting, which, you know what, as the more I do this, the more I just really I find some resistance to even calling it fasting, because why are we calling intermittent fasting that, as if it's like this thing that's like out here that only weird people do, when it's actually humanly what we've always done. It's us eating all the time that's really foreign to us. It's eating all the time and having snacks all the time that's really the oddity for us, genetically, physiologically. So it took me a long time. I mean, I knew the efficacy of intermittent fasting, but you guys, I was so food addicted, having energy problems, having all the stuff I know that a number of you guys suffer with, that I just couldn't even imagine doing intermittent fasting. My son, who's a beast, by the way, I'm so proud of that man, but he's done so many studies. He was not a world champion power lifter like his mama, but that man, he's so determined and driven. And we talked about intermittent fasting for years, and I'd be like, yeah, son, it sounds like a great thing. I really should do it, but I never had the strength to do it. So I'm not going to talk about it for a while unless anybody needs to know, but the protocol that I'm doing actually helped me step into intermittent fasting and realize personally, physically, the benefits that are happening. So those of you who understand or who have listened to me before and heard, we're talking about like the liver, we're talking about acid reflux, we're talking about gastroparesis, we're talking about IBS, kidney problems, gallbladder problems this week, and how it all relates to insulin resistance. But one of the big tools that you guys can do if you're not able to do the protocol is to just do some fasting. So this is day 2, end of day 2. I'm 50, 60 hours into the fast now of a 120-hour fast. So halfway there. I'm halfway there. I've done a 10-hour fast before, a 10-day fast before. I've done a 7-day fast before. now studying more about fasting. I'm really, you know, leaning into this like 5-day fasting and shutting down after that. But I've been suffering with a lot of inflammation in my gut because of the lack of gallbladder and probably damage to my liver that had happened for insulin resistance for years. So one of the first things that I've noticed in the 2 days that I've been fasting, and I've lost, I don't know, like 6 pounds in 2 days, which is tremendous for me because I'm very resistant to losing weight. But I understand that most of that weight is not fat. That's inflammation and water that's come off of my body as I'm fasting. And that's one of the great things about fasting for health is that it does help with inflammation. It does help with this excess water that we're holding on to because of inflammation. As I listen to more and more doctors from different fields and different perspectives, one thing that I think everybody can pretty much agree on is that we today have a ton of inflammation in our systems. That's causing a lot of problems for us. So whether it's neurological misfiring and causing neuropathies, gastroparesis, the stomach not emptying properly, the gallbladder not being able to contract and not emptying properly, because they're really kind of paralyzed. A lot of it links back to this inflammation that's in our bodies and our cells. One of the interesting things for me is that when our cells are inflamed, I like visuals, so I try to visualize this. So if you look at your cell and you think that these are receptors for your hormones, thyroid hormone, leptin, ghrelin, cortisol, insulin, all of the hormones that we have, even your sex hormones, progesterone, testosterone, all that. When your cells are normal, those receptors are kind of sticking out. So as you produce hormones, they can receive them, right? When our cells are inflamed and insulin resistance does this in our body, causes a lot of inflammation, those cells kind of start to like puff up, puff up, puff up. There's less space of those receptors available, so they're not taking in the hormones as much as they should. Even if you have normal levels of hormones in your body, the receptors just aren't able to take them up as much. So as that inflammation goes up, sometimes it just like occludes those all together. Now you could be going in and being like your doctor's frustrated. This has happened to me, and this has happened to a number of people that I've dealt with and talked to and help every day. But now they have normal, seemingly normal levels of hormones. Um, Hold on a second, Crafty. Um, Let me go get my box of my, because I believe the new lemon does not have sucralose in it. It has stevia. But let's talk about sucralose and tell me why they're not happy with the sucralose in it. And I'm going to give you some information on that. Great question, by the way, because I love to talk about this stuff. But anyway, when your cells are so inflamed, they're just not, those receptors are not being able to take up the hormones you have. So maybe you're going in and the doc's like, hey, you have normal levels of hormones in your system. I don't know what's going on with you. Well, it could be inflammation, cellular inflammation. And so one of the things why I do a fast is because I know I'm 59 and that there's been a lot. I've had like 20 broken, well, I'm not going to say 20, 18 broken bones across my body because 2 of them were my nose. That's cartilage, not really a bone. I have over 130 inches of scarring across my body from injuries and whatnot. So that causes inflammation in the body. So a blood sugar drop. I need more clarification on what you're asking about. Now, Crafty, I'm going to, while you're telling me about the blood sugar drop, Meredith, I will deal with Crafty. So um, the sucralose in our products is a very small amount. Studies, and there's a statement I can send to you from our chief scientist. So when we look at the studies done on sucralose, what you guys don't, and most of us are that way, right? Like I've been that way too until I started digging into more and more studies. But when you look at some of these studies, you have to understand the parameters. Like I was just reading some studies on metabolic health and obesity, and it gets really confusing for the normal person, right? But one of the interesting things is the study I was reading today, the point is our metabolic syndrome has gone up like twofold every 4. So It's crazy how quickly it's increased. That 88% of us that everybody talks about, that was a 2018 study. In 2022, they did a study and it was like 93% of us are metabolically unhealthy. So no, it's not. No, it's not. So when you do, I'll send you the statement if you want to text me, and I will send you the statement. So let's deal with sucralose. Sucralose is, it gets a bad rap. So we're talking about these studies, right? When we look at those studies, you want to take a look at how they were done and what was happening. So it was 170 times the amount of the recommended amount of sucralose that was given to the rats in that study. So I'm gonna challenge you, Crafty. If we're supposed to only have a certain amount of sugar a day, and let's take a look at the fact that we're only supposed to have 1 teaspoon of glucose in our system. If we put 170 times that amount of sugar in our blood, what would happen to us? 100, yeah, exactly. Jason, you preach for me. So, and actually the studies are done, Jason is correct, primarily by the sugar industry, because when we started seeing some of these other natural substitutes, it started impacting the sugar industry, and they're like, oh, we can't have this because this is hurting our sales. So they create these studies and they scare the shit out of people to get them to not use these other products and go back to sugar. Sugar is very damaging. Refined sugar is very damaging in your system. So even if we weren't talking about sugar, and say we were talking about water, like I don't have my bottle of water here, but I have water that I'm drinking because I'm fasting. So 8 8-ounce glasses of water is about what we're supposed to have in a day. Has anybody got a calculator? Because I haven't done this for a while. 8 8-ounces glasses of water a day is what we're supposed to, right? Multiplied that by 170, and then tried to drink that amount of water every day for 30 days. What would happen to your body? You would get really sick, probably even die. That's the equivalent of what they did with the rats and sucralose. Sucralose is absolutely safe. We understand that people don't like it, so we're transitioning to stevia, but it's absolutely safe. And I'm more than happy to give that science, the study, the statement from our chief science officer as to all of that. It's kind of like the erythritol thing where they came out and they're like, oh my God, causing all these problems. And it was similar. It was a similar thing. It was a very small study. It was done in a not in a viable way as to human use, and way more than most people would take in. So we have a very small amount of sucralose in our products for sure, to avoid having sugar in our products. And I'm going to tell you that a company who's so concerned about your health, and really, and most people don't know this. I know this because I've been with them for 2 years and understand what they're doing, and have talked to the owners and a number of the officers at the company, and been able to see the science and stuff, or the production facilities, all of that. So yeah, 85 gallons of water. Thanks, Jason, for doing that math. So Crafty, go tell your family that. Tell them, ask them if they were going to drink 85 gallons of water a day for 30 days, would they even be alive at 30 days? Nope, they wouldn't. They wouldn't. There would be a number of things happening in their body wrong. That's the equivalent of what happened with the sucralose study. So again, that's available, and I'm more than happy to talk about that, because I think about anything that I eat or do in a day. Like if I had to multiply that by 100, and how do you drop during fasting? Meredith, thank you. So one thing is, number one, if you're having huge blood sugar drops during fasting, they would live in the toilet. Well, they would be in the toilet eventually. I'm sorry, Meredith. We'll get back to you now. So if you're having reactive hypoglycemia, you need to be careful going into fasting, right? So you're probably going to want to start switching off of carbohydrates and more onto proteins and fats to try and get that to level out a little bit first, and do some intermittent fasting before you do a long-term fast. So what's happening with reactive hypoglycemia, where your blood sugars are dropped, I'm going to talk about that in a second, but let's talk about those blood sugar levels, because this has been a journey for me too, you guys. So I wasn't born knowing all of this. I didn't know all of this stuff, even 2 years ago. I've been doing a lot of studying. So the first time I did an extended fast, and I was curious. I have my watch. I have my ketone meter. I have both blood pressure monitor. I have a blood pressure cuff because I used to work in medical. I have a number of things. So I started like just taking all these measurements, right? What I noticed was, and this is interesting, on my first fast, my blood sugars would go up to about 120, I think, even without food. And I haven't tracked it this time. But then they would drop down to about 60. Okay. Most people get nervous when they're 60, and I certainly did. I'm like, oop, let's watch this. Let's pay attention. I don't want to go to sleep. I might die in my sleep because my blood sugar's so low. But you know what? In the absence of, hey, Edwin, in the absence of disorder and your body being run by insulin, your body's going to say, hey, our blood sugar is dropping. We need to release some glycogen stores from the liver. We need to start burning some fat. The glycogen stores from the liver are going to come first. That's going to give you some energy. It's going to put some sugar back in your system. That's going to get you back up and running. And your body will do that naturally in the absence of other issues going on with you. Now, if you have high levels of insulin, you really got to start to get those down first and make sure you're getting out a little bit out of that reactive hypoglycemia, because it can be dangerous. So here's when it's dangerous. According to Dr. Bickman, this is not me, this is according to Dr. Ben Bickman, who's a metabolic specialist, says that your blood sugars can drop to about 60 and you're fine as long as you're not having extreme headaches, you're not having dizziness, you're not having fatigue that feels like you're going to pass out. Okay. If you're not having those things and your blood sugar levels drop down to about 60, that's a normal cycle in most people's bodies. When I started tracking mine, I was shocked that mine do that. So if I drew a little graph. Okay. I didn't draw very well, but look. So down here is about 60, right? That's the lowest my blood sugars would go when I was fasting. Okay. Once it hit that level, I would start tracking it and it would naturally start to climb back up to 120. Well, the cycle that I had with my blood sugars looked a lot like that. It was just this is not as nice and smooth, but it was actually really eerily smooth. The cycle, the rhythm of my blood sugars driving up and down, even during fasting. Because there was times when I was like, how in the hell can my blood sugars be 120 when I haven't eaten for 3 days? It's a normal process of your body. And that's part of what's, when we have energy, it's converting into sugar in our stream so that it's not just our fat cells that take it up, our other cells need it as well. So other things can convert into energy in the system also, like our cells are regenerating every about 9 weeks. And so as those cells are dying off and new cells are growing, those old cells need to go somewhere. Fasting does a really great job of helping rid the body of those old and dying cells or those unwanted cells that are no longer needed because new cells are replacing them. And when you're not fasting, you don't have the chance to remove those. So now you get sagging and dull skin, you get acne, you get inflammation in the body. It puts you at risk for cancer. So fasting is actually really great as a cancer prophylactic. Okay. Sometimes it's gonna happen, right? But if you want to give yourself the best chance of avoiding those issues, fasting is a great way to do it. Now, if you're not like in optimal health, of course, I'm going to recommend that you talk to your doctor first, always with all this stuff. But I think if you're very self-aware and you're paying attention, like I said, I have all these little gadgets and I check myself and I know how I feel and I know when I'm like getting cold or tired. And so I track all of those things, right? But yeah, the reactive hypoglycemia does get better. And by the way, after a few rounds of fasting, of extended fasting, you're going to realize that you no longer have that reactive hypoglycemia where you get cold and you get fatigued and you get headaches and you just feel like you're going to crash after you eat. So that does get better with some fasting. Dr. Jason Fung talks about it. Dr. Pardeep talks about it. And Dr. Bickman talks about it, as well as a number of other people. But Mindy Pels, who specializes in fasting, talks about it a lot too. So I hope that helps and gives you some answers on that. Um, but yeah, I understand because it really freaked me out the first time that I saw my blood sugars really dip like that. I was like, whoa, this is not cool. But I was really also shocked to watch that pattern go up and down. And that was also when I decided to start testing ketones more in a fasted state than my blood sugars because I realized that the body's doing that. Well, guess what? I got a big wake up call this morning because last night I didn't eat anything. I didn't drink as much water yesterday as I should have. I also didn't get good sleep last night. So this is important, you guys, because I think I went to bed about 12:15 last night and I was woke up at like 5:30. And so I was like, well, hell with it. I'm going to start my day. I'm going to do my meditations. I'm going to do all my stuff and then I'm going to get ready to go live. My ketones this morning. Okay. So last night my ketones were like at 1.8. Great space to be day 2 of a fast, right? This morning they were 0.6. And I'm like, what in the heck happened here? I haven't eaten. I've been drinking water. Um, Wegovy weight loss. I hope you have fun. I don't Wegovy is you guys. Wegovy's is damaging people. I'm just gonna say that. Um, it's so unhealthy for you. But so this fasting, when you're in the fast, it's cleaning up all of these things. I've been doing videos. I know I'm a day behind on my videos. I will do the what happens to your body on a day 2 video today, and then I'll try and get the day 3 video done as well. So you guys can understand kind of what's happening. But for me, now on day 2, 2.5, I'm right at halfway in between. At 12 noon today, I'll be about halfway in between my 120 hours. So without a gallbladder, we were talking about inflammation earlier. I was having a ton of inflammation in my stomach and it started pooching out like I was pregnant again, right? Like it was like, I know that it's not visceral fat. I can tell because it would go out and it would be really hard and distended and then it would collapse back in. So visceral fat, the belly's going to just go out and stay out, right? This is why you're self-aware, correct? You want to be aware of what's happening, aware of the changes that are happening in your body. I'm a big advocate for that. So, but my stomach, and I would tease my grandson because he would come over and he knows now that I have a gallbladder issue. He knows like Nana shouldn't eat pizza. She's going to get sick. But I would have him poke my tummy, like, feel this now, because it would be hard, be really hard, like poking the side of my cup here. And then a few hours later or whatever, my stomach would go down and you could poke it and it's nice, soft, like it should be in the absence of 6-pack abs, right? So there's a lot of inflammation going on in my body. So now 2.5 days into the fast, one of the things I've realized is that I love seeing is a lot of that inflammation is gone down in my belly. So now uh, I stand in the mirror and I'm like, oh, it's nice to have my belly coming back down and being where it's at. It's not the absence of food or calories per se. It's the the rest that I'm giving my body from digestion. It's the autophagy that's hanging out and removing some of these cells, proteins that are inflammatory and whatnot that the body stores. I'll go into more depth in some of those if anybody needs to. I don't have it all on the top of my head, so I do have to go research some of this stuff to bring it to you guys. But I'm noticing a lot of really good change. One thing you'll notice on an extended fast that will maybe blow your mind, because on a 5-day fast, not so much. But when I did a 10-day fast and I'm like still eliminating, like I'm like, how am I like not urine, but feces? How am I still eliminating when I've not taken anything in for 10 days? Because the body's continuing to use up stuff. There's, things are trapped in the gut. And we're just continuing to utilize food and eliminate it during a fast. So even in the absence of eating, you'll hopefully still be having good movements. They'll slow down a little bit, and you should be drinking plenty of water. So I told my daughter's doing this 5-day fast with me. We're both, again, we're using the little what are they, 6.9 ounce bottles of water, And every time I drink one, I set it on the counter. So at the end of the day, I know I need to have drank at least 10 of those because I forget, you guys, I forget to eat, I forget to drink, I forget to breathe sometimes. It's crazy. So I put those there so I know I'm getting the 10 uh, waters in. I don't like to leave the house. I get busy, but I'm going to run out and get some stuff to fix my glass water jug. And then I'll transition to that and track how much of that is being drank in the day. So make sure you're hydrating. Most of you guys don't need to drink, as I'm aiming for a gallon while I'm on this fast because I really want things to flush out. But most of us are not getting in enough water. We don't need to overhydrate, but getting in enough water is really important. So and all of this in tandem with what we're talking about this week on the, from the mouth to the butt, everything that's related to our gut getting sick with insulin resistance. So we talked about acid reflux a little bit. And you guys, before I started protocol and this fasting stuff, I had really bad acid reflux. And I had ulcerative stomach, and it was painful. And I had gastritis, after the gallbladder was removed. I'm not suffering from those things anymore, but now I just got to get this inflammation out of the body. And part of it is keeping the insulin down. So, of course, I get to be the guinea pig, right? So I'm in menopause. I want you guys to know too that when you're in menopause, when your estrogen levels are low, whether it's menopause or not, you become more insulin resistant. Estrogen helps protect from excess insulin, but when the insulin is disturbing the estrogen, then it becomes that negative loop, right? But if you naturally have less estrogen in the first place, you're going to fight insulin resistance even more. So this is part of why older women start to put on weight, because they're becoming more insulin resistant as their estrogen levels naturally drop. Crazy stuff. When you have your gallbladder out, it also jacks with your thyroid hormones and how they can be used. And so now you're becoming more insulin resistant after a thyroid is removed. So I've had, or not thyroid, after your gallbladder. What am I talking about? So I'm in menopause, estrogen levels are low, had my gallbladder removed, was insulin resistant for 30 years. So it's a little bit of a battle for me right now. But the cool thing is, because it's a battle, I'm diving in and learning and finding out all the stuff so I can share it with you guys. So hopefully you guys, if you see yourself in what's happening with me and you need help, then I'm more than willing to share with you what I know. Can't diagnose, not a doctor, just sharing what, this journey is of getting back to health as an almost 60-year-old. And I'm actually really enjoying my life right now. In my 50s, I was in so much pain and had so much else going on. My hair was falling out, my eyesight was failing, that I just wasn't looking forward to it. I didn't know if I was going to survive past 65, especially because my blood pressure was so high. Now I'm actually really looking forward to being here to like 150 because I got stuff to do, grandkids to play with and stuff. So now I'm just rambling now. I love when you guys ask me questions. Hey, Crafty. All right, so when we talk about the one of the things I wanted to talk about that really doesn't have to do with the gut, but does, because when we talk about the gut, so on the exterior of our body, the integumentary system, or your skin, is the biggest organ you have, right? And it's like your shield. It's the thing that's protecting everything inside from all the nastiness out here. But it also is our early warning system. So when you're insulin resistant, you'll start to notice things like skin tags come up. You'll notice dark skin patches on your neck or your elbows, under your arms, and your groin. That's kind of a warning from the skin saying, hey, there's an imbalance inside the body. And that imbalance is there's too much insulin because you're eating too much all the time. We don't need to snack all the time. And then the other one that I don't talk about as much is cystic acne. So cystic acne can happen with insulin resistance too, just in how the glands are functioning or not functioning, and the excess fats that are being produced inside the body, a number of things. I really need to do a good video on that again. I know a number of people who've had cystic acne and suffered with it and gotten better when they got their insulin resistance addressed. But on the inside, your largest organ is your intestinal system, right? And when that's unhealthy, when that's inflamed and sick and has this what we call negative gut microbiome, it starts leaching that inflammation and illness out to every other organ you have. So now you have heart problems, you have lung problems, you have thyroid problems, you have pancreas problems, you have kidney problems, you have liver problems, you have all of this stuff happening. Plus, it's affecting brain, eyes, teeth, tongue, all of it, from the head to the toes. That inflammation that's being held in your gut because inflammation from insulin resistance and the imbalance is leaching out to your whole body. So when I was talking about the throat and esophageal acid reflux, um, the doctors used to get it confused. Like, it took a long time for them to diagnose it. I had this thing called eosinophilic esophagitis. And all that means in big words is the white blood cells that fight allergies were building up in my esophagus in this tube right here, and it would actually shut down my throat. So I would choke on water. I couldn't swallow my own saliva. It was a severe allergic reaction. That allergic reaction to everything around me was happening because I was so full of inflammation from insulin resistance that was one of the ways my body dealt with it. Like, I would get hives, I would have all these things happen. I don't have problems with that unless I'm extremely anxious about something. I used to have to go, I would not go to restaurants most of the time. I would never order red meat out. I would be very careful, pastas and stuff, maybe, but even at that, I could choke on those. I don't have those issues now because I'm getting my gut under control, and the inflammation is going down. So, whether it's acid reflux, heartburn, that your stomach can't pump those acids back out, or something like I had where it's actually the esophagus stricture coming on, those are both linked to insulin resistance and the things that happen in your body. Um, so then we move on down, and I talked about the stomach a little bit, right? So the stomach is full of acids, and then it's digesting, and in the presence of insulin resistance, it kind of paralyzes some of the muscles inside. So the gallbladder's not contracting like it should, releasing bile. The stomach's not contracting like it should, moving that acid on through as you digest. The intestines aren't contracting like they're supposed to. That ends up in gastroparesis, or a paralysis of the intestinal tract and stomach, where people, when they have to be very careful when they eat because it gets lodged, because it's got that paralysis going on, food gets stuck in there and it can create kind of like a brick, and it's very painful and very dangerous for people with gastroparesis. Gastroparesis is found more often in people with type 2 diabetes than anywhere else. So it's definitely linked to insulin resistance. And then, just again, with the gut microbiome, when we talk about that, I cannot tell you all the microbes that are in there. We need both. We need both of what I call good and bad in our gut. But the problem is that they get out of balance. And so when they're out of balance, there's things like yeast that grow in our gut. And that yeast, so there's the twofold way why you're craving sugar so much. Number one, the high insulin levels, and the body saying, oh, we have this high insulin level, our sugars are low, we've got to close that gap. But the second way is this excess of negative gut microbiome. They actually live on sugar. So, when it goes from being balanced to the negative gut microbiome taking over, they're now screaming for, they want to live. They want to thrive. So now you're craving more sugar, and it's making the problem worse. So again, addressing the root problem of insulin resistance just helps all of that stuff calm down. And then your gut microbiome starts to heal up and be normalized, because we don't want to get rid of all of that negative gut microbiome. We need it, but we need it to be balanced. And so we're not balanced right now. That's part of why we're sick. And then you're going to see rashes. You may have rashes around your tummy, under your breast, and your groin. Those are all indications you have some inflammation and negative gut microbiome. In fact, women who have, this is more reproductive than, but I didn't talk about it last week. So women who have insulin resistance are more prone to having bacterial and yeast infections consistently than women who are insulin sensitive. So if you're suffering with, it's not the only cause. It could be a cause. If you're having problems with odor, if there's diet to do with that too, right? But if you're having consistent female infections and you haven't been able to figure out why, because it's not due to hygiene, it's not due to your partner, it's not due to whatever. It could be that you're insulin resistant and it's got that microbiome off and it's causing this excess growth of bacterium in your urinary tract, in your female organs, in your gut altogether. And so I know I suffered with it for years. Doctors couldn't figure it out. We went through everything. And the minute I started becoming insulin sensitive, all of that struggle went away. So know that too. So it's literally from the time you eat food all the way down to the time you're excreting it, everything in between is affected by insulin resistance. So I've done a lot of talking about insulin resistance, but I want to talk about what it is so you understand why I'm saying all of these things. For those who don't know, because I forget, you guys, I forget not everybody knows what insulin resistance is. It's just part of my life. But um, what's happened to us is in the modern food environment, we're eating, not only are we eating too much too often, we're eating foods that are stripped, modified, and manufactured from what they should have been, right? So we're eating more boxed foods, we're eating more prepared foods. Some of us, that's all we have available. And so I'm not here to like point fingers at anybody. It's the environment we live in. Because look, if you took a group of 100 kids and you put them all in the same classroom and 93% of them failed, 93 of those kids failed, you wouldn't point your finger at the kid and say you just didn't try hard enough. That these 7 kids did better and they tried and that's why they succeeded. You'd be like, what's going on with this environment, with this classroom that's creating this paradigm of 93 kids, 93% of them failing? That's equivalent to what's happening with us. Our food system, our food environment, our lifestyle environment has created this system where 93% of us are failing metabolically. So we can make small changes, and I encourage making small changes and being self-aware and understanding what's happening. But I also need you to understand that with the environment most of us have, it's almost impossible to do. So there are people who say like they went vegan, they cut out all sugar, they went carnivore, they went whatever. That's great. Do all of that if it works for you. But I've dealt with vegans, I've dealt with pescatarians, I've dealt with from all spectrums that were still getting sick. They thought they were really healthy. They did the protocol that I'll talk about here in a few minutes, and they found that their inflammation went down. A number of issues that they couldn't explain happened to get better for them eating very clean. So if those people who are eating really clean are having problems, what do the rest of us do? Moms who have kids, like my daughter has 3 kids, like every night I'm trying to talk to her and she's like, I'm at a basketball game for this one, I'm at a track meet for that one, this one has an event going on, and they're constantly running. That's our lives now. They didn't used to be like that, but that's our lives now. We add to that the fact that we have this food industry that, and I'm talking about things like snacks. So we look at chips and candies and even the granola bars that you guys are being sold. Um, we don't need those snacks. We're going to be just fine without them. In fact, I was listening to Dr. Fung this morning talk, and Dr. Fung wrote a couple of books, a number of books actually. He wrote the Cancer Code, the Obesity Code, and the Diabetes Code. Extremely smart man. But he was talking today about how, every time we eat and we're putting little bits of food in those snacks, we're teaching ourselves to be hungry. We're teaching ourselves to need more food. We are not helping our metabolism. We're actually shutting our metabolism down. So all these people who are saying, eat before you get hungry, eat every 2 hours. What actually is happening is you're training your body now to run on insulin, because every time you eat that little bit, you're spiking your insulin up and you're not letting it come down. Now your metabolism is starting to change drastically. So part of the reason we love intermittent fasting and extended fasting is it trains our body back the other way after years of being trained wrong so that we can switch because we want to be metabolically flexible. And that means we switch from using insulin, which I didn't explain yet, as fuel and using our own fat as fuel. One thing I want you to understand before I dive into insulin is you cannot burn fat for fuel as long as insulin is present in your body. So if you're eating every 2 hours and spiking your insulin every 2 hours, you cannot burn fat. Okay. All right. So insulin, when we're eating like this all the time, it's causing this problem. Every time we eat, our body is converting the food that we eat into energy in our body. So proteins and carbohydrates turn more into glucose than fats do. Fats very minimally do. When your body produces glucose, that's blood in your, or that's sugar in your bloodstream. When the body senses that there's more than about a teaspoon of sugar in your bloodstream or glucose, it says, yo, pancreas, we need some of that insulin. So the pancreas starts to produce insulin. The insulin comes out to start to get this sugar out of the bloodstream and get it back to where there's only a teaspoon in the bloodstream. Well, what does insulin do with all that sugar or glucose in our bloodstream? So I like to see insulin as two things. It's a transporter and it's an energy storer. So if you think about a tanker truck going to pick up some to a gas station around the world that needs it, right? So we'll say in the US because you can't drive a truck over the ocean. But so they produce this fuel, which is the food that we eat, broken down, turns into glucose in our bloodstream. Insulin comes along and says, okay, I'm going to fill up. I'm going to carry this energy out and I'm going to deliver it. Every cell in the body needs insulin because it needs energy to grow. And glucose is really just energy in the body. So insulin is delivering it to all these corners, nooks and crannies, to your toenails, to your teeth, to your hair, to your gut, to your heart, to your everything needs insulin, okay, to deliver the energy. When we're eating all the time and we're continually spiking that glucose so that there's way too much in the bloodstream consistently, instead of allowing insulin to come out, do its job, and then go away, we're training our body to produce insulin consistently. So now our insulin levels are up, and insulin now is trained to stay up because you've said, I'm going to eat every 2 hours. I'm going to put more food in. So insulin, you be on guard because I'm going to be there. Well, at some point, insulin is high, and it's like, dude, you had me out here. You've trained me to be here, and there's nothing for me to do. So now you're hungry, and now you're having cravings, and now you're needing sugar and salt. And so if Catherine, so if you're adding like a stevia-based or non-sugar sweetener, something that doesn't have calories, you can add that to your water. So do that. The first year I was on the system, I did that, and then I started realizing the tea that I drink costs me less than most of those, and it's adding to my health, and it gives me flavor in my water. So now I just drink tea all day, except for some water once in a while. But yes, you can add no calorie sweeteners to your water. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But so insulin now is high, right? Now we've trained it to be high. Now we're saying, okay, we need you here because we're going to continue to eat every 2 hours. We're going to have popcorn. We're going to have chips. We're going to have candy bars. We're going to have M&Ms. We're going to have granola bars. We're going to have that piece of fruit. We're going to have that carrot or whatever. You guys, food is fuel. So yes, there are better sources of fuel, but whether you're sticking a carrot in your face every 2 hours or whether you're sticking M&Ms in your face every 2 hours, you're spiking your insulin. Okay, so we got to stop that. That's part one. Then, so now the insulin is high. But the other thing that happens, besides insulin starting to become like this bully because we've blown its ego up too much, right? And we've trained it to be up here. Now the cells are like, dude, I'm so sick of you. I don't want you coming around. I don't want you knocking on my door. I'm tired of that energy that you have to bring me. I'm not opening my door for more. I'm not doing it. Now we're insulin resistant. So cells that need the energy are just like, nope, not doing it. If I open my door, he's just going to be right back here. And insulin will. If it finds a cell that's going to take it, it's just going to come right back and bring more. So most of the body becomes very resistant, and it affects how the liver acts. I'll talk about that in a minute if somebody reminds me. But some cells start to become overreactive. They're like the little reminds me of me in school. Like every time the teacher asked or the professor asked a question, I'd be like, me, I know the answer, me. And they were like, Nisha, will you give somebody else a chance for once? But anyway, so we have some cells in our body that are just like that, okay? So they're like, me, I'll take the energy, I'll take the energy. A couple of those cells, just two instances of those cells are some skin cells called keratinocytes. And when they start taking up too much energy and overproduce, you end up with skin tags. So if you know anybody who has skin tags, it's a factor of the fact that they're insulin resistant and their body's starting to struggle. Okay. The other place that it happens is in the inner wall of your blood vessels. There's a layer called the endothelium. It's the innermost layer inside your blood vessel wall. Those will take up excess energy. And then what happens is they go from a very thin layer that's healthy to a very thick layer. Now, when you look at the inside of your blood vessels, instead of them being nice and open, they're really tiny because this space got thick. Now your blood pressure goes up because you're trying to take the volume of a fire hose and push it through the size of a garden hose. And it just doesn't work. So the pressure builds and builds and builds. Me too, Jeep girl. I wish I would have known this 20 years ago too. By the way, my physician does call me and tell me, I'm so glad you're doing this, and I'm so glad that you put out this information. So I do have approval of my physician for the information or her blessing for the information I provide. So that's happening. So those two types of cells, or two types that I can talk about right now, your endothelium and your keratinocytes, will overtake this production of insulin. So it doesn't always just shut everything down. But yeah, I mean, I try to find a doctor who is, whether you agree with me or not, whether you find a doctor that works for you. Yeah, stevia with natural fruit, yes. So I got to retract. Woo, where was I? Overreaction in the cells. Okay, so we have some cells that are overreacting. We have some cells that are saying no. When we think about muscle cells, our muscles need to be insulin sensitive to be able to take that energy up and utilize the energy and the protein that we're taking in so that they can build and be normal size. So two things: we're eating too much that turns into glucose and eating too little protein. Okay, so muscles start to get resistant to insulin. They're depleting and you have less muscle tone. I call it, look, I've noticed for years before I understood all this, I was like, why does one person have this great muscle tone and the other person is just flaccid? I call it, because their muscles are flat. That's a factor of insulin not being able to get energy to the muscle cells. But it also affects your bones. So your bones start to get weaker. They're not as strong. The ligaments, the tendons, the labrum, the meniscus, all of that starts to get depleted because it's not getting the energy to regenerate. Okay. Your lymphatic system gets blocked up. All of these things start to happen. So insulin resistant people have less muscle mass on them and put on fat easier than people who are insulin sensitive. Now, on the odd thing is when you start to try and look at losing weight, if you're insulin resistant and you follow normal dietary plans, and this is again coming from doctors, that you are more likely, I'll tell you that in a second, you're more likely to lose muscle over fat when you're insulin resistant. Okay. So part of it is you need to get the insulin levels down and become more insulin sensitive. Then what's going to happen is you're going to gain more muscle just naturally because now your muscles are like, thank you, I needed this energy, and they start building. I'm not talking about going out and doing crazy workouts. I'm talking about just the normal process of your body, and your fat cells start to deplete. So like for me, I didn't lose weight for the first 6 weeks on the protocol because even though I'd been a power lifter and even though I have this tremendous amount of muscle cells on my body, they were depleting. So they're there. when I started becoming more insulin sensitive, those muscle cells, those ligaments, those tendons started to regenerate, but my fat cells were depleting. But now, when we look at mass per volume, um, or weight per volume, fat has more volume for 5 pounds than muscle and bone does. So I'm losing fat, but I'm gaining muscle and bone. My size is going down, but the weight on the scale did not for 6 weeks. Okay. That's a phenomenon that can happen, and it's actually a good thing. So my doctor, when I showed her the Feel Great system, there was a couple of doctors I was dealing with at the time. I had my GP who had been working with me. Um, she was the first one to see my blood pressure go down. We had been cycling me through many medications, statins, whatnot, to get my blood pressure down, and it just wasn't working. And she was terrified. Like, her face, lovely, lovely woman. We were friends, and as well as coworkers, as well as patient and physician. Um, Her face would have terror on it when she would be talking to me about my blood pressure, because she was actually literally concerned. So 6 days on the system, we went in, and my blood pressure read at 126/84. Now, normally my blood pressure, the lowest that it was charted in my charts was 150/110. It would often be like 170/130, 180/150, but it was really high. The best it was charted at was 150/110. 150/110. 6 days on the system, and it went down to 126/84. Now, it didn't stay down that low, um, but it eventually came down and stays down there now. I don't know where it's at now. But that's not what I wanted. So she's actually really approving of it, because she knows that I like natural. We've had many, many conversations about all of this stuff and my hormones and yada 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 yada. She was just relieved to see that my number one, my blood pressure was down. Number two, my diabetes was reversed. Number three, my liver panel started to normalize. And number four, I was able to lose some weight. So the first three were most important. The weight was, like, for me, it was an issue. Um, and I still want to lose more weight, but having that, all the internal markers be normal again, was gold for me. That meant, like, okay, I'm going to live. Literally, I'm going to live. Because, you guys, it was to the point where I honestly wasn't sure um, if I was going to be alive to be 70, because I was so sick. So my doctor absolutely loves it. She's not doing it, although I wish she would. I wish she would. She's running into the same things as me as she gets older and has menopausal issues and all of that. She's starting to notice some weight gain and whatnot. So my blood pressure is 129/74 this morning. The 129, the systolic, probably has to do with the fact that I'm on a live, that I'm fatigued, and that I'm on day 3 of a fast. So my body's a little stressed. When I'm done with the live, I'm actually going to go lay down, because I only got about 5 hours of sleep, if that, last night. And that really messes with blood sugar, ketones, and blood pressure. Okay. So your doctor is actually trying it. The thing is we used to do the system in, like, Walgreens, Walmart, whatever, right? And not those, but pharmacies. And it was just found that people were not getting this kind of education enough. They were not getting the personal touch enough to understand, to stay consistent to what's happening with their bodies. And so the company made the conscious choice to do direct sales, because they were really committed to making sure that people get the knowledge. So they pulled it off the shelves and started having it being direct sold, so that, yeah, that people can contact me directly and get the information they need, and they have a source to go to when they're having questions about all of this. Not that I'm a physician, but I am pretty well versed on a lot of stuff. So there's that. And I know, so I was talking to my daughter yesterday, and she had somebody say some negative things. That happens, right? Because there's just people on TikTok who are just angry, and they want to take their angry out at everybody in the world. But my response to her was, look, and I'm going to tell you guys this too. We have a couple of oncologists. I mean, cardiologists who are actually prescribing it to their patients, the protocol that I'm going to go over in a minute, because one of them in Wisconsin actually prescribes it to every single patient that comes in because he did it himself and realized how much it helped not only his diabetes, but his own cardiovascular issues. So now, even with cardiovascular issues, he's requesting that all of his patients try this as opposed to medications as he works them off of medications. We have oncologists who are recommending it to people because they've seen people with things, especially like intestinal cancers, who are only they according to the doctor, they surmise that the person is only alive today because of the protocol, because it wouldn't have stopped the cancer, it wouldn't have, but it kept them healthy enough to survive their cancer to this point. And then we have so oncologists, cardiologists, neurologists. We have a couple of neurologists who are like, because you guys, the tea that I drink in the morning has great neurological benefits, and so neurologists are hopping on board now too. So it's not just us that are, it's not just TikTok influencers, and yes, it is recommended by a number of physicians. But I want you to, I'm going to say this about physicians really quick, because in my years of working in medical offices, one thing I can tell you is doctors are no different than us. They all have their own opinion. They're all going to be swayed by what they think works or doesn't work in the same practice. Two primary physicians, I would watch it happen all the time where they would go at each other about a therapy, whether it worked or not, or even a diagnosis, whether it was real or not. And they're two well-respected doctors in the same practice. So, I'm going to say this one more time. I want you to work with your healthcare providers, but I want you to be self-aware enough to understand to use your intuition and what feels right to you. And if this doesn't feel right to you, then move on and find what is right for you. But if this sounds or feels at all right and you want to hang out, I have a number of people who said, I watched you for 6 months before I decided to do this. And they went on and they found all the negative stuff and they were like, you know what, I made the change. So I actually spent 40 minutes on the phone with a lovely woman last night, who's been on the system for a while, was not able to lose weight, has lost over 47 pounds in just over 4 months. But more than that, her swelling has gone down and a number of other issues that she's had has gone down. She sees about 3 different specialists and they're all like, what are you doing? Because all of her markers, her labs, her other indicators are all getting better. And her doctors are like, I don't know what you did, but keep doing it. And so what she did was what Crafty and a couple of others have been talking about is this protocol that I talk about. So this is one way. We've talked about fasting, guys. If you want to get your insulin sensitivity back, fasting is a great way. Do it with caution. Make sure that you're healthy enough to do an extended fast, or start with intermittent fasting. And I'll come back to intermittent fasting in a little bit because I want to give you guys some information on that as well. But the protocol that I use is this. So it's a tea that I drink in the morning and I can have it. This does not break my fast. So even on my 5-day fast, I'm drinking my tea. Okay. So it gives me mental clarity. It gives me energy without like the crazy, crashy, jittery energy. And I will explain more about that at 3 o'clock today. I'll go over all of the components of these and why they work this way. But there's 3 different components in this that adhere to the caffeine molecule that change how caffeine works in your body. This is all just from an herbal plant called yerba mate, but there's 375 times of this chlorogenic acid, which is great for brain function. So it has neuroprotective expression in the brain. It helps with dopamine uptake. It helps just with wellness score. It helps with all these amazing things. Chlorogenic acids do a lot for not only your brain, but your metabolism. 375 times the chlorogenic acids in this as in any standard yerba mate tea. So this is like a magic bullet. And most people, when they try it, they're like, what is this stuff? I'm not hungry. I'm not fatigued. My brain fog is gone. So that's step 1. I have that every morning. Now, I am in a fast, but on a normal day, then about 10:30, I would have my break fast because I'm breaking my fast. It works. It works. Yeah. So then I'm going to have, on a normal day, I would have my pre-meal drink 10 minutes before I eat. Now the tea I can have hot or cold. I like it cold, but it's starting to get cold out and rainy, so I'll often have it hot. Now you asked about the citrus mint. Remind me, Crafty, to come back to that. So this one you're going to drink cold, and you're not going to, in like this I sip on all morning. This you want to drink 10 minutes before your meal. So a great friend of mine, I have ADD, I do have some time blindness, I will forget stuff. So I'll drink this. If I'm cooking, it's really easy because I eat when I'm done cooking. But I'll set a timer for 10 minutes. Now I've had this less than 10 minutes. It's not ideal, but having it in your system is better than not having it. So then I just wait 4 to 6 hours, and then I have another one. Why these? What they are is a multi-source fiber. So it's like 7 different soluble and insoluble fibers scientifically blended to help reduce blood glucose. In fact, one package of it reduces blood sugar spikes by 27% when used 10 minutes before eating. 27% reduction of a blood sugar spike by just one packet. So, and it's like a 13% reduction in insulin. And the crazy thing is, 2 packets reduces that blood sugar spike just marginally more, but it almost doubles the reduction of insulin spike when you use it before. So yes, you can have 2 before a meal if you're, especially if you're having pasta or things that are not high in protein and high in carbohydrates. I also sometimes add protein to this before I eat it, before I drink it, if I'm having something that's higher in carbohydrates and lower in protein. So that's it. A tea in the morning, a pre-meal drink before I eat anything. That pre-meal drink helps regulate my blood sugars, thus my insulin, helps keep my fat levels down. And that's it. 3 drinks in the day, I'm done. It reversed my diabetes. So Nina, good question, because I'm about to head there right now. So everybody who's on TikTok, just tap on my picture up here. On Facebook and on Insta, or on Facebook and on YouTube, I'm going to show you in just a second. Let's go to the TikTok right now. So if you tap on my picture, it'll bring up a box on the bottom. Tap on it again. So you're going to tap twice. That'll get you to my whoops, this is my YouTube, not my TikTok. It'll get you to my TikTok profile. Right below the red light symbols, you'll see this link. Yours is going to look black and not red. You just click on that link. YouTube, you're going to look right on my page. You'll see the link right there. Facebook, same thing. Huh. I don't have my Facebook open, but you'll see it on my professional page right there in all my information. Okay. Then if you click on the link on TikTok, on any of them, it's going to take you to this page. This page, if you click on this top link, that's where you're going to get it. Now, it will say Michelle Fayant at the top. Okay, and you need to make sure it says that. That's what lets me know that you've ordered. That's what lets me know to start sending you texts, to start sending you emails, to start sending you like a video as to how to use this and all of that, so that you can have it and refer back to. That's what gets you those texts, so you can write me back. Okay. Then you're going to click on the buy now. By the way, if you don't do this, if you go through Amazon, eBay, Walmart, there's no link to me and there are no guarantees when you purchase through those platforms. I want to warn you guys, people get really upset, but there's not authorized sellers there. There's pirated products, expired products, all of that. We do not sell on Amazon, eBay, Walmart. Okay. So unless you're using somebody like me, you're not getting all the guarantees and you want those. So then you're just going to click the buy now and you're going to have the choice. Right now, the lime is gone and we have this new flavor out, you guys. If you missed the lime, I'm sorry. Hopefully it'll come back someday. Right now we have apple crush out. I'm going to go over that in a second. You get 30 of the tea. You get 60 of the pre-meal drink. The tea, you get to choose between lemon and lemon ginger. I would start with just the lemon. These special edition flavors have been wildly popular. You can get orange anytime. I would say start with the lemon and the apple crush because you don't know how long that's going to be out. We switched the packaging to these narrower packages so that it fits better in the top of a water bottle. And then you're going to select between one time or monthly. It is $159 a month if you just do it a month at a time. If you do the subscription, it's only $154, so you're saving $5. You get free delivery. You get this free hand mixer. Now, the free hand mixer is like a little milk stirrer that I mix my tea up with. So I want to talk about this, you guys, because this is not one of those things where when you do the subscription, there's going to be people calling you and bugging you. I call you and check in on you. Okay. The apple is freaking amazing. Amazing. So let's talk about the apple, because so they sent us out 5 different flavors. I'm not going to ruin it. We've already tried out the pink lemonade, right? Love that one. You guys, by the way, I love all of these with our vanilla protein if I'm trying to up my protein before a meal, which you can do. The lime was my second favorite, but the apple was my first favorite. So Nina, we're talking about 2 different products, okay? So the tea only comes, and I know they're working on some other flavors, but the tea only comes in lemon or lemon ginger, and it's the same formula, just different flavor. I'm not as sure, is it as effective as, and I don't know what the final part of that statement is. This is, then this probably wouldn't be a good this probably wouldn't be a good one for you, because we do sweeten with stevia. This is you drink before your meals. So this has to be, yes, it's as effective as orange. It's the same, everything about it, except for that we're switching to stevia as flavor. So look at, this is a great example. So we can't win, right? We have sucralose, which is very safe, but so many people complain about it. So we're trying to go away from sucralose and put stevia in, and then there's, so it's like we're doing the best we can to make this as efficacious and easy to use for everyone as possible. But there is some sucralose in, not sucralose. The orange has sucralose. The old orange, I've heard the new orange does not. The orange has sucralose as a sweetener. The apple and the lime have stevia as a sweetener. The lemon ginger, Jeep Girl, I like the lemon ginger. But the lemon ginger, so I want to say this. This is not like a sprinkle of a powdered ginger. This is a ginger extract. So I used to do, because I was on this health journey, I've been on a health journey for a long time. So I did the shakes with all the stuff in it, and I put raw ginger in it, and I put cayenne in it, and I did all the stuff, right? The ginger in this reminds me of the drinks I made up where I put real ginger in my drink. So it's a little stronger. It's not like overpoweringly strong, but it definitely has that ginger taste and heat. So if you're not in love with ginger, don't do it. If you like ginger, which I do, then I drink that. I especially love the ginger when it's hot. My favorite is the lemon cold and the ginger hot. Now, Crafty, I know that I keep not answering this, but citrus mint. We don't have citrus mint out right now to sign up with. The flavor is really bitter on the citrus mint, not gonna lie. They've been working on the flavor profile of that, so it should be coming back out now. The black isn't available right now because okay. So it's a little bit bitter. I'm going to be honest. If I do the citrus mint, I have to drink that one hot. I don't like the citrus mint cold. You can add stevia or any kind of sweetener to the citrus mint. So you can do that. So Nina, let me do some checking, because I believe that that all of the products have some stevia in it now. It would be interesting what you could do if do you have an allergist you work with. I used to work in an allergy clinic. So I do this for myself at home. I'm going to tell you what I do. I'm going to be very careful. I'm going to tell you what I do when I have something that I was worried about being allergic to. I would take a sterilized needle and I would mix up a little of the product, and I would prick my skin with the needle. And if I swelled up really bad, then I would know I can't have this. If I just had a little bit of swelling initially, because there's going to be some inflammation, and it went away and didn't cause a big reaction, then I would try it a little at a time. Okay. I would actually, if you have an allergist and if you're really allergic to it, I would, because you have a 90-day money back guarantee, I would just take it in. The allergist will mix it up and they will put you through a test, right? They're going to give you increasing doses of it to see if you can tolerate it or not, working up to being able to give you a drink. If you're that allergic to it, then you want to be in an allergy clinic where they can have epi and all of that available. If you do go into anaphylaxis. So that's what I would suggest. The other thing that you can do, Nina, is I've written a book called 6 Simple Steps to Helping Your Insulin Resistance. And if you go back to my profile, there's the ebook listed there, and that will give you the 6 simple principles that I talk about to help with your insulin resistance, so that you can try that. But if you really want to try the system and you want to go through the allergist, do that. Again, I take my own health into my own hands, so I test myself, but I make sure that I have Benadryl or something. Don't ever take Benadryl before you do the poke test or it won't show. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so I would just take some in to him if you're really interested in trying it and have them do an allergy test for you to see if you can tolerate it or not. Um, I know that, and I can't say this for you, Nina. I will say that I was extremely allergic to a lot of things, right? For me, once I got my insulin sensitivity back and started getting rid of the inflammation in my gut, my allergies have gotten better. My grandson has a puppy. Um, oh, I keep forgetting, Catherine. I need to read those comments out. I am so sorry. So Nina's talking about that she's allergic to stevia. She has an allergist and she's highly allergic to many, many things. So I'm so sorry. I try to read those and then I forgot myself this morning. But for me with allergies, again, I'm relaying my story. I had my grandson has a dog that's a Great Dane. If that Dane touched me, I would get itchy. I may get hives. If he drooled on me, I would definitely have hives and start to have problems breathing. I can be around the Dane now. I still get a little itchy, but I'm okay. Environmental allergens, I had a little struggle when we were having change of the seasons because this is a new area to me, but I didn't have like the nasal infections. I don't have the eosinophilic esophagitis, which is an allergy reaction. So as I've gotten healthier and as I've gotten the inflammation out of my system, my allergies have all gotten better. So just got out of the hospital from an anaphylactic to depot. Yeah. So yeah, well, I would just actually just purchase it because they're going to get their money back anyway. And just try it. That way, if you get cleared, you can start it. And yeah. But if you're that allergic, I would definitely try it in a doctor's office. Don't do the home version that I do because, that's not safe for everybody, but I do what I want. Okay, guys, okay, so Nina had said, Nina said she just got out of the hospital from an anaphylactic reaction. So again, I would recommend going to the allergist for that. Yeah. So Crafty, most of us don't send samples out because there's too, I mean, like when I send samples out, it costs me like $10, $20 plus the $10 for the shipping plus the samples. So, and the company just doesn't recommend that. So it's not very often that happens. If Nina, if you want to talk to me, you can get a hold of me. My contact information is on my WhatsApp page or on my contact page. Okay. So I am going to dip out, guys, and I'll be back about 3 o'clock today, and we'll talk a little bit more, and I'll go over all the science of this stuff and why it works. You're very, very welcome. Nina, just go find my WhatsApp and add me there, and we'll have a chat, okay? Have a good one, guys. Bye, Catherine. Thank you for reminding me. I'm so sorry. I forget over here what's going on. And you guys are like, what is she talking about?